yeah, we on a sister ship. Come with us, we on a sister ship. Yeah, we on a sister ship. Roll with us, we on a sister ship.
Sister ship, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sister ship, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sister ship, we got this now. Come on,
let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Happy Sunday, my sunshines. Hello, everyone. This is your girl, Stephia, here on the Sister Ship Network every Sunday. And I'm so excited about today. As you can tell, I'm very enthused because there's going to be some nuggets of wisdom, insights, perspective, whatever, in this space of amazing women. As we all know, this month we pay homage to Black History Month. It is our American history. With that said, though, we want to focus our energy today around the village. What does the village really mean, and what did it mean, and what will it mean for us as we go through life and continue on the journey? But before we go there, I need to introduce our amazing panel today. And I'm so excited because this is the first this year, 2022, of having our girl, Lady K and Lady Wisdom, back in the room on the Sister Ship. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And I'm so honored to have you guys on, ladies, because every time I get on the Sistership Network with these ladies, they always come with some fire. You know, yeah, my name is Stephia, but guess what? They come with the fire up in here. So I'm so happy to have you guys on board. And then I have to reintroduce our girl, T. Jones, to Wanda Jones, who is back again in 2022 with the Sistership Network. Hello.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Girl, look, she brought a whole nother set.
Hi. I got a whole nother look today.
But looking
Who knows what next month will bring.
That's all right. Keep bringing it. And I have to do this justice because when we talk about ancestors and we talk about history and we talk about wisdom, I have to introduce here, and it's a personal joy to have her on because she's my mother in love, Mama J. I mean, she is going to drop pearls of wisdom in here. Absolutely. That will take you back into time and also forward, because she's going to give us a whole lot of nuggets and pearls of wisdom as it relates to the village. Hello, Mama J. Can she hear us?
Welcome, Mama J.
Hi, Mama J.
Thank you for the introduction. Hi, ladies, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So let me just give you a little bit. I mean, of course, we know Mama J. She's a mother. She's a grandmother. She's a community activist. She's an auntie to many on the block. And this is why it's so important for today's discussion to engage her in this, because we can talk about the last 20 years. We could talk about the last 30 years. We can talk about the last 40 years. But she gives us a plethora of knowledge and wisdom from the past 80 plus years. God bless you, Mama J. We thank you for coming in and being on the Sistership today. And we're honored to have you on.
Thank you. And it's an honor to be with you ladies this afternoon.
She's got it ready. Let me tell you, she was prepped for this discussion. With that said, so let's talk about this. It's an old African proverb, right? And I don't think some people may know this, some people may not. It's an old African proverb. It takes a village to raise a child, and obviously not create insanity for the parents that go with it. And what we want to do is we have to really understand from a historical perspective what the village really meant to each of us, right? What was the village like as you think about your history, as you think about when you were growing up as a child? And I want to start off with Mama J, because of course there's quite a bit there from a history perspective. So Mama J, tell us the sistership and our lovely audience out there that's looking for those nuggets of wisdom. What did the village mean to you? What did it look like as a child for you?
My village started in 1897
God
with
bless.
my grandmother. And that's when she was born, December 25th, 1897. And she stayed as long as February 22nd, 1989.
Mm.
So
Wow.
she was the strong one. She was the one that had all of us, all the grandchildren. And I'm the oldest, but I've also gained the position of matriarch of the family now. Stefania is well aware of this. But my grandmother kept us all together. It wasn't any babysitter. My grandmother was Nanny. I gave her that name, Nanny. And so when our mothers, we lived in the same house, downstairs and upstairs, and I'm the only child that my mother and father, I'm the only child. My mom had a lot of sisters, so they lived upstairs on the second floor. So everybody was in this house. So when I got up, I went upstairs to my grandmother's while my mother and father went to work.
Mm.
So that's how this, I want to say, started. We would sit around. Look, kids now, I don't know anything because I'm a kid. All I can tell you, we were together and she kept us together.
Mm.
She was there every day, and that was her thing. She loved taking care of her grandchildren, and take care she did. So that's how my village started to me. But I didn't know what it was, but I know it was something close.
Mm. Mm.
I know it was close, and I know we shared.
Mm.
But it's some
Nice.
more goodies to go along with that. But that's how my village started in 1897.
I love that. Shared that sense of community with family, and that's amazing. I mean, because we see what we see today, but having that as your structure, as starting out your life, is important. Let's let Tawanda. What did it look like for you?
Pretty similar because I come from an older family. My parents had me at least when they were older, but I have older siblings. And it was the same growing up in Newark. I hear the stories because I didn't live there on Barclay Street, Peshon, things of that nature in Newark. And that's what you had. You had the village. If you did not live in the same house, you lived very close. You were walking distance or maybe a block or two away, like your grandmother. So I as well grew up with the village. My grandmother, I would come to New Brunswick with my aunt. Even though my sisters were significantly older than I was, it's still that sense of community. Even in the community that I grew up in the Weequahic section of Newark, the parents, a sense of community. If you were heading to school and your hair wasn't right or something wasn't right, one of those village mamas would stop you, fix you up, and send you on to school. They didn't sit there and snicker at you if something wasn't right. Even if we had single mothers in the neighborhood, those other mothers would pitch in and help her with those children,
Mm.
not sit around and gossip about it. So definitely, if they saw you do something wrong, they would correct you, and you better go home and tell your mom about it before they get to her and tell her, because you want to kind of cushion the blow. You won't get it either way.
Cushion the blow.
Cushion the blow. Try to make it seem like you were forthcoming. You're gonna get it either way.
Yeah.
But you at least want to kind of, as they say, grease the skids a little bit.
Grease the skin. I like that. I like that. I like
Yeah, but you just never felt like you had no one or nowhere to turn to.
Mm.
And you always had you even had the elders that looked out for you, whereas you knew maybe somebody in your community or even in your family, maybe they were a few sandwiches short of a picnic. So they protected you from that person too.
Yeah.
So it's like, there were some things that took place. We don't want to make it seem like everything was very sterile growing up, but
Right.
you were protected.
That's
You
an
you
important
felt
thing.
protected.
Yeah. Protected. What does that mean? So Lady Wisdom and Lady K, man, coming in this, and I know Lady Wisdom was like, we need to talk about this village. We really need to talk about this village. And I agree. I mean, there's so much to take from history, and so much we've lost through time, right? And changes that have occurred in society and everything else that's going on in our country. Lady Wisdom, what are your thoughts? What were your thoughts when you brought up this whole thought of what is it that we have from a village? What is it that the village was to you? What are your thoughts about that?
I think for me, um, I saw the changing of the guard in the village.
Mm,
And so, what I learned, I'm an avid reader. Um, and so, a lot of things that I learned because I was hungry for what it was that I wasn't getting. Like,
Mm.
um, I think when the changing of the guard happened, I'm in my 50s, and I'm thankful to God and grateful to God to get me all the way here because I have lost a lot of my friends,
mm,
because things had changed as I was growing up. Um, what I noticed is I'm a grandmother, and I have 5 beautiful grandchildren. But at some point right now, I have to remind my children that I had raised them. So it's if I'm having a conversation with one of my grandchildren, or I'm disciplining them in some way, or I'm saying something, it's kind of like, you don't say that to you. You can't talk to them that way, or why would you say that? And it's like, I think I raised you guys pretty well. So what I started doing was paying attention to what was happening around.
mm,
And I noticed that as the guards had to change, where the ancestors and the grandparents. So I was listening to Mama J say that her village started in 1897 with her grandmother.
mhm,
My grandfather was born in 1889.
mm,
And so he had passed before I came to be. And I realized that I didn't have anybody to tell me the stories of the history of my family.
mm,
So I was also seeing that people were watching Roots, the movie Roots,
mhm,
and the amount of shows that come along with it.
mhm,
And, I mean, series, like the episodes that came along with it. And I realized that we had no one at this point. We had got to a stage where our children were getting lost because their parents were lost. Um, I grew up in the era where my mom was there, my dad was alive, they were both alive, and they were there, but those that are around my age or a little bit older than me was getting caught up in the crack era,
mm,
where the grandparents no longer had an opportunity to just sit down and tell story time. They were now raising the next generation where they had to go back out to work, or they were where grandma was home taking care of the kids, while her children were out working. I had the grandmas that were tired that were raising new kids around my time.
mm,
And so I realized that when you pay attention to the way people raise their children, the one thing I taught my children growing up is that everybody is not raised the same.
mm,
Mhm.
So the village at one point where is we didn't have caller ID, we didn't have text messages, we didn't have cell phones. But I bet you if you did something by the time you got home, your parents knew,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So not only could you be disciplined by your neighbor, or how many aunties did we have and how many cousins did we have? We got disciplined, and then we got disciplined by our parents once we got home. Um, but now if you say something to somebody's kid, it's like, don't talk to my kid like that. Who do you think you
Mm,
talking to?
mm,
I'm from such and such an area and I'll fight you. Like, I fight kids too. So your mom, bring your mom. Are you kidding me? So you got them overcompensating with the material. So
Mm-hmm.
when the changing of the guard happened, so did the pride in who we are
wow.
as a whole. And
Mm,
Mm,
and and the continuing of the pride was blocked by the material things, because remember, it wasn't what you knew, it was what you had. Again, I'm in my 50s, so my generation started looking for faster ways to make income, and they became street pharmaceutical reps, and you ended up in two places: jail or in a grave. Your family suffered because either mom or dad or your siblings got caught up in it. You have people that are now effacing it. It became a war on drugs in the 80s because they were looking for another way to, mm, let me say, how do you say it and be politically correct? Maybe there's no way to say it, but
let's keep it real. Go ahead.
um,
Say it.
they were looking for another way to enslave people,
Mm,
mm,
um,
Mm-hmm.
because they couldn't do it legally
mm,
unless you were incarcerated.
right.
wow.
That's a
Excuse me for a
whole
moment.
nother show if we talk
That's
about the playground, the
That's
prison pipeline.
oh,
that sure
absolutely,
is.
absolutely.
Yeah,
But
that's a whole nother
that's
show.
yeah, and that's a good point because
Mm-hmm.
she took us from, again, an era that had changed so drastically because of what was put into the community, right? What
Right.
was peppered into the community and then expanded from there. But I go back to what Lady Wisdom had talked about, changing of the guard, and she talked about how parents today, it's this concern about children being they're doing something wrong on the street that the neighbor knows, and they're disciplining children and things of that nature. That's drastically changed from what it used to be back in the day, right? Because we trusted the people in our communities to help us from a village standpoint and mentality of a village standpoint. I want to bring Lady K into this because, coming from your perspective, you have children of your own,
Mm-hmm.
and the protection of your children is important for you as well. What do you think? Talk about kind of how your family construct was, as it related to how you all kind of work together in keeping the village and protecting your children as well. Because I know you have some experience in, especially today's age, because I think most of us are probably a little older, just a tad. But, just kind of bring your perspective, because I love the fact that with our panel, we have different eras. They're all blending together, but they've changed through
Right.
time, right? So give us kind of your perspective.
Sure. So, to me, this looking back, I feel like I was very blessed because my village started with my grandmother as well too. And I
Mm,
like to tell people all the time, I didn't grow up in a single parent household. I grew up in a multi-level, generational household. People say multi-generational, yes, because I had my grandmother there while my mother worked, and my grandmother took care of me and my siblings. And what I love about my grandmother, sometimes she didn't always have the right words, but if you watch it, like, she'll show you she has the love. She put her love mostly into her food. And you know how Black people, we're so sensitive about our food. So I
Yeah.
love how my grandmother, when we came home from school, we had that hot meal. I love stepping in the door, the smell and the aroma of food, knowing that my grandma, oh, she about to put her foot in it. I can't wait to dinner time. That's what I grew up to. I love that. You know what I'm saying? I love that dynamics, and somewhat to a degree, my kids got to experience that. And even though I lost my grandmother last year, somebody said in here, somebody said they took the matriarch and they carry it, and now my mother is carrying that. And it's kind of like I like that part, because even though grandma's no longer here, all the teaching she's embedding us is like the love is still here. It's still here. Like my oldest son got to experience my grandmother. Now that she's gone, my niece, she had a baby, and the babies are 5 months old, right? And because of, again, the love that my grandma has taught us, it's like when she's tired, we'll just go take the baby from her, go rest. So she has the ability to not just feel like, oh, I gotta have this baby 24/7, because we rotate. There's enough of us where it can rotate, and that's what I love, and that's what I appreciate.
There's such a common theme here. And I mean, you all know, because you've all said it. The grandparents, the matriarchs in the family, they carried you. They gave you the knowledge and the wisdom that they had, and hopefully that you transcended through time. And I love the fact that as we look through the historical lens of every single person on the panel, the common theme was the love and the care of family, the gelling of family, and making sure that continued through time. Yes, there were challenges, as Lady Wisdom said. You had the drug era, and that's still plaguing our communities. But at the same token, you still have a sense of family there. And I know some of that's broken down through the years. We know that society, things have changed in society. But the common theme
Can I
was
speak to that?
yes, go
One of
ahead.
the things that I had a conversation with quite a few people is we no longer have the family dinners. Every now and then, whereas before, I remember we used to, I don't care if it was, we got a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, we would gather together. Like I would come to New Brunswick, and my aunt, and we would sit around, and I'm a coffee drinker to this day. They put that percolated coffee on. We had some chicken, some sides, but everybody was there together. The adults was in maybe around the dining room table. The kids were maybe in the yard playing, or we were someplace else, but we were together. We would have that dinner. Again, that sense of family. We now, like, you see families, just even the nuclear family, the kids are in their room with the devices eating. Like they don't even come together and eat, or they don't even put the devices down and come together and eat. And one of the things that I always talk about with some of my friends, which are Gen X, and I said, we do have to take part of the responsibility, because we tried to give our kids everything materially that we may not have had, instead of giving them the lessons and the things that were passed down through, like a Mama J and the elders, that we needed to teach them. And I say the kids now are materially rich, but morally bankrupt.
Exactly.
Speak
I'm
Exactly.
on
gonna
I,
that,
off you,
Mama
T.
J.
I'm happy you said that about the
Right.
dinners, because even now I do that with my children. Like when it's dinner time, no devices at the tables. It's just us, and it's so funny. Like the kids, they get an attitude. They can't stand it, but they're going to appreciate it when they get older. And I always tell my oldest, I said, you're going to appreciate everything that your mom is doing. I said, do you know there's a lot of families that don't even sit at the dining room together? So that was my rule in my house. When you come into my house, we're going to eat together.
Absolutely.
And I set that tone.
that's
That's
true
Mama J,
right.
because
anyway. Go ahead.
we had, I have three children. Darren, of course, is the youngest. But dinner time was, I worked. I was a working mother. My husband was a teacher, and I was secretary for the mayor of the city of Newark for 34 years, and and on with a great career. But dinner time was at 6. But of course, we didn't have all the things we have now. But we ate at 6 p.m. But when they got older, they had activities in high school. So we ate a little later, but we always ate together. And my husband had a second job, so he wasn't at that dinner table at 6 o'clock, but my kids and I were. But I wanted to piggyback on something that was said a little earlier. in reference to you could never figure out if you did something,
Mm.
you couldn't figure out what happened. And this is a story. I think I was 8 years old. But if you remember, it was always someone at your house, a grandmother or aunt or someone stayed at your house.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't put our people in the nursing home. There was no such thing as that. We took care of each other,
Put a
relatives.
bed in the living room if you
Thank
have
you.
to.
But this particular time, I was about 8, and my father's sister was staying with us, and she was taking care of her baby, and I was supposed to be playing school. So she closed the door, but I couldn't go out. So I heard my friends. I raised the window on the second floor, climbed out, sat on the ledge, talked to them, came back, closed the window. When she came back in the room, I was playing schools. When my mother came home from work, I remember, because she told me years later, lady that saw me, two sisters, 90 and 92, you, Mrs. Edwards. And she told how I was sitting on the ledge. When my dad came home, they were still in the window. You, Mr. Edwards. Now, I don't know why I'm getting warmed up now, because and they never really did do, but I got spanking that day. But now I don't know, how did she know this? Now, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know these two ladies. They were the villagers also and the block watchers. Aunt Minnie and
Mm.
Aunt Mattie
Mm-hmm.
knew
Yeah.
everything happened on the block. And
Yep. They would
then
be
when
on
it
that
was,
porch
thank
or
you.
in that
And
window.
then on our turn, we had someone on our block, bless her soul, she's not here anymore, Blondell Odom on
Mm-hmm.
Vassar Avenue.
Yep.
We was one block long from Maple to Clinton Place.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody went to work. Mr. Odom knew everything that happened down the street, around the corner, up the block. He
Mm-hmm.
was the babysitter and the block watcher. I mean, you felt safe, you felt comfortable. And I also would want to say, even now, when we're not as active as we did as step members, we still have a little block association here. We're one block long, one family homes. I know everybody on this block. When you come move in, let's say, I come to your house with another my neighbor. We bring a plant, a card, and we welcome you to the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not
Mm.
as close knit as it used to be. I'm almost in my 40th year here, but it's something missing. And then you also said you can't speak to someone's child
Mm.
or correct them.
Speak on
Right.
You
that
might
one.
get beat down to the ground.
Mm.
I don't bother. I mean, I'm serious because it's very dangerous. But years ago, you could chastise someone else's child. Don't even try it now. It's
And
awful. And I worked with the PTA. We used to work with the PTA. I mean, but you still don't. And why? Why is that? Why can't we speak to someone's child and try to correct something that we see is going wrong?
Right.
Mm.
And
Because you
families aren't
unfortunately,
families
right?
anymore like they used to be. You know it?
Mm. Yeah.
well,
And I think
I'm so
that the
sorry.
greatest thing is we don't really stick together. And why is that?
Mm.
Well, as adults, we don't either. We
Mm.
did that years ago now.
Well, at
Some
one
people
point,
don't know,
right?
can't tell you who lives next door. Who lives next door to you? I don't know.
I speak to every one of my neighbors, and you know why? Because where I live,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be that person on the side of the road and they just leave me there.
Mm.
I
See?
will
Mm.
also help somebody. I've picked up people. I've seen mothers walking with their children on the side of the road trying to get from one point to another point carrying a baby and some bags, and I will put them in my car and take them home.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point that I felt like I was the only villager trying to help get kids, parents not being home because they working and the kids needing to be picked up from school. Somebody was sick. For many years, I was blessed to be a homemaker, and in the process of making a home, when people came to my house, they felt the home.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm,
there's a way to
Mm-hmm.
change things, and but you also have to watch the changes that happen. So
Right.
what I was doing, what I learned to do was to break the generational curses that was happening around me. I decided that I wasn't going to continue on that wheel, that hamster wheel that we run and we
Mm-hmm.
see the same things happening. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
going to do the same thing. I was going to make sure that everybody understood that if they needed somebody, they had me. What I learned by watching some of these young adults, I had a young woman run up to me and she's 40 years old and she was like, "Do y'all know who Miss Sherry is?" And people would be like, "No." She was like, "You don't understand how many of us she saved our lives." She
Mm-hmm.
kept it real. She told us about things that was happening and things that happened prior, even before she was an adult. You know, because I was a young adult. Like I became a mom early. I was married early. um, and I used to always, I would stop. My thing was unity, which we don't have a whole lot of unity in the community no more. We got
No.
so busy trying to be accepted. At one point, when you said, Mama J, you said there was a point where we stood by and we helped each other. Let me tell you what, that was the most time, and no disrespect intended for those of you who can see me, you already know that it's more to me than the average eye. But at one point, when we were separated and segregated, we had no choice but to rely on each other.
That's right.
Right.
Now, while we're integrated, so people are so busy trying to be a part and accepted so that they are not misunderstood. Um, I'm light bright and damn near white, as I was teased when I was growing up, because I am multiracial. I am thankful to God for who I am. Right now, people don't know what I am. And all you can say is, well, she's a human. Or now you got to call me by my name. That's not something like I can pass. I'll pull my hair back and bun it up, and you don't actually know who I am.
mm,
But for
Uh-huh.
me, knowing who I am is important to my daughter. My oldest daughter is going to be 35 this year. My daughter said to me, she said, "Hey, Ma, I have to do a genealogram at work. Because she's a teacher. I need to know some things about my family.
mm,
I need
Mm-hmm.
to know some things about my dad's family." My daughter made sure she had a list, and I answered every question she had and sent it back to her. And the first thing people want to know is, how do you remember all of that? Things
mm,
that are important to you, you remember.
Mm-hmm.
So we had got to a place where I would call my grandparents' generation the secret generation. They kept
Mm-hmm.
secrets,
Yes.
right? So there was things, my grandfather, and no disrespect intended, my grandfather, he passed away in 2013. He was 95 years old when he passed away.
mm.
And in the process of it, I learned that my grandfather used to pay my father not to come back to the town that he was raised in,
Wow.
No.
because my father had issues growing up. He went to the Korean War, and when he came back from the Korean War, he was hooked on drugs. And my grandfather was so ashamed of it
Mm-hmm.
that he kept it a secret, and he put that part of his life away. Like,
Mm,
so in the process of doing that, my dad was messed up my entire life. Um, and I didn't know why he didn't go visit my grandfather. And my
Mm-hmm.
grandfather, I spoke to my grandfather on a weekly basis, but my father would be so upset because he would say, you have such a good relationship with grandpa." I said, "Because I want to know some things about my family. He's my grandfather. I
Mm-hmm.
should have a relationship with him." And um one of my siblings had said to me how excited my father used to get when I would call him. I was speaking to my uncle, and I learned some things about my grandmother's side, which was married to my grandfather. I learned some things about my mother's side, but a lot of the things I'm learning now that my parents have passed away, and
wow.
because I'm an adult, and
Mm,
because I'm asking the questions. We had left the generation in the village somehow. We don't have story time where you would sit around and your grandparents would be able to tell you the stories of when your uncle so and so, or when your grandma this, or when your grandpa that. We don't have any of that anymore. Pandemic gave us a good opportunity
Yes,
to do
Yes.
some
certainly
teaching,
did.
to do some loving, to do some nurturing, to do
Mhm.
some family things with our families. I had to have this conversation because people were pissing me off. And that's the nice way to say it. But the one thing I kept saying when I heard people say, I'm tired of being home, I'm bored at home, I'm bored at home. I said, well, did you teach your children how to wash laundry properly? Did you
Hello.
teach them how to do chores? Did
Hello.
you
Right.
teach them how to clean themselves well? Did you teach them about your family? Did you put the electronics away and teach them about board games and a deck of cards?
Hey, that's my
That
thing.
Did you
that was
have
Right.
it. That was it.
family
Every game,
game
every
night?
kind of game you could name. But Stefani could tell you because she comes to our family reunions. I am
Yes.
the historian also. When
Yes.
I was 16 years old, and I'll be 84 in a couple of months.
God
My
Oh,
bless you.
grandmother, thank
bless
you.
you.
My grandmother lived with us for a while. She was fun. And my husband and I were dating at the time. We were high school sweethearts, and we just went on and on and on until 56 years. You know, we made 56 years, thank God, and he passed. But at
Mhm.
any rate, I would come home from a date, and I would say to her, "Are you awake?" And she'd say, "Yes, child." And I would have to do her hair for church in the morning. So in the meantime, I would tell her different things. But best secret keeper in the world, to me, her hands are the ones grandma's hands because she had the hands that could touch you, make you well, heal you. But
Healing
during these
hands.
conversations, I would say, one time I said, "Do you have any sisters or brothers?" I'm 16 years old. And she began to tell me, and I wrote everything. So whenever we have this, do I always come with my spiel, Steph, to tell the young
Yep.
people, listen to what I'm telling you, write it down and know who your people are.
Yes.
Right.
Right,
Yes.
Steph?
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yep. I can
Can you
hear
hear
you.
me, Steph?
Yes,
Yeah, we can
ma'am.
hear
Oh,
you.
but that's one of my things. And I didn't know she had all of these brothers and sisters.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Then I began to meet them, met them, and then here lately, maybe in the past, maybe 10 years ago or something, we went to her home for the family reunion. And there she had a niece who she got, this lady's got to be about 95, looks exactly like her.
Hmm.
And I said to her, "Well, when you were growing up, how did you get home?" She said, rode the horse. She said, "Just get on him, said he'll lead you home. Just ride him, he'll lead you home." And when
Wow.
I went to that her home, that's where we had this family reunion, and I could not think of anything greater that I'm on the sacred ground where my grandmother grew up, went past the church, and I said, "Lord, this great lady was." I couldn't even see my grandmother on a horse.
Mm.
She did. So from her, she was a strong person. So I like to think that's where my genes come from, being a strong black woman. Great life, faith, and prayers. That, that'll get you through.
That you just brought up an amazing point, and actually something I wanted to also
We
talk
still
about.
there?
Yeah, I think
Yes,
Mama
ma'am.
Kay. Yeah, we hear you. Faith. That was a huge part of history, right? I mean, think about
Mm-hmm.
your ancestors, and church and faith was important. I mean, the house of worship was important. How did that get your families through? And that was part of the village as well, right? I mean, think about it. It's part
Exactly.
of what that ritual was, is not just having faith, but also expressing that in a family environment and going to church and working through the scriptures, and relaying that to your children and bringing them into that circle.
Right.
What are your thoughts about that? Like, was that part of your village, and how impactful was that for you?
For me specifically, it was very impactful. Even to this day, as an adult, um, there are a couple of things that I have come to realize. One, I really understand when the elders said, "Lord, I want to thank you for waking me up this morning with the
Mm,
activity of my limbs enclosed in my right mind." Because if you notice, mental health is a big discussion now, and
okay.
understanding having your mind right. But then also, there are
Yes.
times as an adult where there are challenges, and there are some old hymns that were taught in the church when I was a child. I like the new gospel music and things of that nature, but there are some old hymns from church from back in the day that they just hit you different. They hit you here, and
Mm.
Right.
they just give you that comfort. And and I find myself, turning into my grandmother when you start that rocking, and and you just really feel it. And
Yeah.
you know, I was brought up in a Church of God in Christ, which I praise those roots. So even though I went on as an adult and I may have strayed, but there were certain teachings that just never left me. And the one thing that I find in the people that I gravitate to, whether they're Muslim, Jewish, whatever, people who have a moral compass. People who don't have a moral compass or that anchor in some sort of way, they kind of give me reason to pause.
Mm.
Can you all hear me? Sorry, it seemed like
Yes, we lost Mama
okay,
J.
okay. We lost Mama J. Yeah, it seems like there
Yeah.
was something reloading. But yeah, I always hear about, when we think back, it was such an important part of family structure and of, spirituality and having that spirituality. And it was so important to hold on to that faith that carried most people through in the most challenging times in history. Oh man, I hope we get Mama J back because she has so much. And, she mentioned, I know she keeps saying, "Hey, Steph, I know when we would do family reunions, she, as the matriarch, now as the matriarch, she did. She always told everybody in the family, anybody who would listen, "Hey, Mama J," anybody who would listen to what we are conveying. Listen to our history. Know your family. Know the people that are sitting next to you. They are your cousins. These are part of your family members. Know them, learn from them, understand who they are. And I think everybody kind of said that to a certain degree is that we've lost sight of that. Sometimes we don't even know our cousins, our second
Right.
Thank
cousins,
you.
third cousins, or whatever have you.
That's
Right.
true.
But
I don't.
I'm
I do
sorry.
not know a lot. I do not know a lot of my family.
Yeah. Lady K, I'm sorry, you were saying.
Right. I just want to say something real quick. I know because we keep mentioning, the kind of dynamics is lost is not the way it used to be. But
Mhm.
somebody said it in here, and to be honest, it goes back to secrets and it goes back to a lot of hurt. So because of
Yes.
the secrets, it hurted everyone
Yes.
and it separated everyone. So this is why we're
Hmm.
in this midst right now trying to put it back together, but some people are successful, some family are successful, some family
Mhm.
not, and it's
Hmm.
just not, and it's so
Yeah.
hard. But the good thing is about like my generation, like a lot of my cousins, I'm starting to know who they are via Facebook. So I'm kind of happy that social media came into place because now I get to know my generation. It's now our decision if we want to connect because the elders, they got their hooplas and they secrets, and that's none of our business. That has nothing to do with us. So now that we know that we're related, now that we can make a decision, do we want to establish a relationship? Do we want our children to know, your each other children, so they can know who their family is? And at least, it's sad. I'm not trying to say it's like this, but if I don't want to talk to you, at least I know I'm related to you.
Yeah. Yeah, you better know who your cousins are.
Right.
You better know who your cousins are. We've heard stories about people not knowing their cousins and ended up in a relationship that they shouldn't be in.
Right.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's
So,
true.
but yeah, kind of
Yeah.
going back
That's
to,
true.
that,
That's true.
yeah, yeah. I mean, going back to that, that spirituality, community. I want to kind of go back to this whole about raising children within your communities, because Lady Wisdom, she brought up a good thing, and I know think so much has changed, right? And I think we need to think back to, I think trust is a big issue,
Mhm.
right? I mean, trusting, obviously, through time, we've learned of, even within family environments, there are people we don't trust for
Right.
good reason, right? Talk
Mhm.
about secrets.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And, so it gave us a sense of insecurity within our own construct that stopped us from working collectively as a community, as a village, as a family, to kind of continue the traditions, in some sense. And that's just maybe a small population. I don't want to make it as big as it. It's probably not as big, but it
But
is.
if you get technical with it though, and you have brought up faith, right?
Mhm,
There's a couple of things that I don't do too much talking about politics and faith
mhm,
because you can get into
Mhm.
major arguments with people.
right.
But I'll say this, unfortunately, when you said hurts, right? The secret generation caused kept secrets that caused hurt.
Mhm,
Um, some people relied so much on the church family that also had secrets and hurts.
mm,
That church hurt has
Mhm.
kept a lot of people from being in the building anymore.
Yes.
mm,
Church hurt is a whole different type of hurt.
Um, that
Yes.
kind of conversation,
Mhm.
that kind of trust being broken.
Mhm.
Oh, we could do this for hours and
yeah,
Yes.
hours, but we
Yes.
can't
Yes.
do this. This is not what this show is. But
right.
just to
Mhm.
reiterate, it has something to do where the faith part happens. So, um, you might have been brought up in a church, and as a kid, you didn't have a say whether you was going or not. You was gonna be there, and you had to sit still, and your grandma or your auntie or whoever was sitting next to you might have had a piece of peppermint or a butterscotch or something like that, where they gave
Loose
you one of
cough
them little hard
drops.
candies to Luden's cough
Mhm.
drop, absolutely.
Yep.
That you thought was candy, but it was
The
a
cherry
cough
ones, girl. The
drop.
cherry ones.
But you would sit and you had to be still. Now they have their iPads and they moving around and they get to run around and the parent act like they not even there, and their mind is like, well, there's so many people. If something happens, we'll know that way. You don't want the village to be a part of it. Um, and then you do. It's kind of like it's a little wild. But if you get
Right.
technical, if I trusted my parents and then my parents trusted the church and then the church let my parents down, they eventually had church hurt, which I eventually suffered because of the church hurt, which kept me from following the faith, which
Yeah.
is not what's happening to a lot of homes. Now, am I saying that all homes are broken? Absolutely not.
Mhm,
No.
Am I saying that all of our ancestors stopped telling stories? Absolutely not.
mhm,
I'm saying that that's what happened to a lot of homes. A lot of homes.
yep.
Again,
It's
they
a
were dealing with what they had. That love, peace, and rock and roll that they had at am I gonna blame what's the place they Woodstock? No. But there was a point where they was trying to find a peace and integrate and peace. It became a problem for a lot of people. So
Mm,
now I don't want to go to the church that you go to. It's and you could tell a church hurt and where it began. My mother was raised Catholic. My father was raised Baptist. My grandfather was eventually Episcopalian. And by the time my grandfather died, he was still going to he was Methodist. And then by the time my father died, he was a part of Islam. But he was a part of Islam for my entire life.
mhm, mhm,
So it's like now you're trying to find faith on your own. Um, Now, Mama J, she brings a plethora of wisdom to her family. So her grandchildren,
mhm,
her nieces, her nephews, even cousins, and so she was the only child. But what wisdom she had in her 84 years of on this planet,
Right.
I
Mhm.
actually would consider her an adopted grandmother. So, because I need to know. I need to know what was going on when you was growing up. You know, things don't change a whole lot. They just go around, right?
Comes
But
Right.
the
around.
styles and the fashions, all that stuff just went from one generation to a next generation. We went back to plaids, and we had bell bottoms that came
Yep.
back out, and people are wearing afro and afro puff hairstyles and such.
Hmm.
All of that is still a part of our life, but it happened before us,
Yes.
Right.
right? So they say if hindsight was 2020, if I knew then
What I
what I
know
know
now.
now, it wouldn't have
Right.
happened. I
Right.
can't know where it happened if I don't know where it began.
Exactly.
Mm.
Right.
I am writing a book now. Steph knows I'm writing this book, and that's what I was doing during this COVID. And I couldn't find anything to do. And I said, I'm going to write a book. I've
Nice.
done a few things, but every now and then I have to go back to this because then I said something else comes to me.
Mm.
But it's a, I
Mhm.
mean, and people will always call me and say, "Oh, do you have such and such's number, or do you know?" And she can also tell you, it's not a person that I've met. I don't forget you. I know your number. I know when your birthday is because anybody in this family, you're getting a birthday card, you're getting an anniversary card, and God bless you if you pass away, I'll be at your service and you get a card from me too. I never forget you, and I hope
Yep.
they never ever forget me. And my daughter, she's always, Mom, why
We
do you go
won't.
to all these funerals all the time? And then eventually, you know, but some of us, some of my old girls, or some of the foxes are still around. You know, we still got some silver foxes around.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But I mean, it's something that I like to do, and it keeps me busy. And I always try to stay busy because the devil is always working.
Oh yes.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Well,
Yes,
Yes.
but
it's
you have
God.
something that a lot of people don't have. You have a memory. You think about how many people. I was at work
Yes, that's
yesterday,
true.
and while I was sitting at work, my coworker had left her cell phone at home. She was
Mm.
in a frenzy. But you know what was more sad than anything? She did not know her children's phone numbers to actually give them a call so that they could bring
Really?
her phone.
Is she an
Mm.
older
She
person?
No, she's young. She's in her 40s.
It's
She had
technology.
The
Yeah.
Right.
she had
technology
no
has
Technology.
idea
caused us
what
to
these phone
be
numbers was. There
mhm,
Yeah.
was a point
lazy.
when we was kids where you would get a phone number on a piece of paper and you would remember that number. You didn't
Right.
need to remember it. Oh, let me get my phone so I can get so and
Mhm.
so's phone number.
Yes.
Unfortunately, technology, as nice and
Yes.
advanced as it is, it has
Right.
made so many minds lazy.
It's a
Yes.
blessing and a curse.
And a curse.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true.
Only
Mama
number I
J, I
know.
wanted
I
to
didn't
speak
know
to
my
you
mama.
about remembering people. And back when you guys lived on Vassar and you would have the block parties.
That's
Vassar
right.
Avenue had some serious black block parties. And I think DJ was
That's
doing the
right.
music, then DJ and a couple of the other guys. And I mean, we would go into the evening, but we would go around there. We knew we were safe. We had a good time. It was about
Mm-hmm.
dancing and enjoying community.
Mm-hmm.
Mama J and Miss Odom and all, they would always have stuff to drink and to eat
Mm-hmm.
out there. It was a great time. It was a great time. And I just wanted you to know I remember those times.
You know, I listen because Mama J. I mean, obviously, I've known her for 21 years, and have enjoyed every moment we've spent together because she does bring a whole lot of wisdom and
Hmm.
history in conversations that we have. You know, we'll sit at the table and she's got a story, like the whole family. Everybody's got a story, you know, and I love it because it's story time for us. But somebody said, the devil's busy, right? And so the question I have is, and this isn't any family construct or situation, but when we think about the village and we think about the devil that has come to pass every single generation, drugs, breaking down communities, families, things of that nature. What are some of the things that, I guess, what are some of the teachings or learnings on how to continue to hold this village together, even if it's within your own family environment, because, again, communities have changed, right? People are
Mm-hmm.
starting to move, families are breaking up, it's the reality, it's society. Technology is taking over. We start utilizing all these tools and experiences, not for the better. Sometimes what we don't realize, sometimes it's at a disadvantage if we don't use it correctly, right? And I remember who said it about, this period of COVID, taking advantage, and maybe it was Lady Wisdom, taking advantage of the opportunity during COVID to take a step back and get back to the roots,
Mm-hmm.
right? Get back to the roots of what
Exactly.
really is important in the family construct in the village. What are some of the things, as you think about what you've seen, that has been ways to kind of take away from what a village is supposed to be, right? Or what we think the village is, or what we know the village to be. How did you manage through those challenges? Because that is an important piece, I feel, that we need to, we may not have all the answers, right? But we know historically where we've been, and, taking some of those nuggets to try to help push people forward, to kind of go back to those elements. Not everything can be taken, but there can be pieces of that would help for future, children, grandchildren ahead. So what are some of your thoughts as far as that is concerned? Like, what are some of the things, as you went through challenges historically, to kind of keep that village intact?
One of the first things that has to be done is got to be a choice.
Mm,
It's got to
Mm-hmm.
be a choice.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what we choose in life, we deal with consequences of our choices, right?
mm, mhm,
So either you're going to have a good choice, a good outcome, or you're going to have a bad outcome. But we always get to this place where we talk about, I don't know why this is happening to me.
Mm.
But the
Mhm.
very first thing
Mm.
that we did, we made a choice.
Amen.
So
Amen.
with my family, what I was doing with my family, even during COVID, was the Uno cards came out. I
mm.
got a 5-year old granddaughter that'll take anybody down in the game of Uno.
It's on.
Tell her, tell her, get it.
She will take
She
anybody
getting
down. Look,
time,
and
but
she'll
that's
have
all
all her
right.
cards facing up so you can see what she have in her hand, but she's still gonna beat you. Um,
That's
we
funny.
not only play Uno, we play I Declare War, we play board games. We got every for Christmas. One thing that I started getting my adult children, they're young adults,
Mm-hmm.
but they're adults. I started getting them was board games.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Anybody that
Mm-hmm.
knew me
I love
or knows
Monopoly,
me
Monopoly and Pekino.
knows that you could come to any room in my house and I got a game in there.
Yep.
I have a closet at the very top of the closet is filled with
Me too.
games. Now you go to my
Yep.
children's homes, they have their closets at the top filled with games. They do have the electronics and they have technology, and my children, my
Mm-hmm.
grandchildren have iPads, and some have well, now only one has is two of them have little phones, and they have televisions and they have all the technology. But the one thing that we do with my grandchildren, um, is we remind them that it's family time. You want to sit down and play with me? We
Exactly.
don't always have to play technology. Grandma's too old for that. Oh, you know what I'll do? I'll play a game of Uno with you. Oh, you want to play I Declare War? I'm going to play some cards with you. Come on, I'm
Really,
going to
Um.
read with you. I'm
Yeah.
going
I
to do
just
that.
want to.
I love those.
Our thing was every Saturday we went to our grandmother's, whatever daughter's house that she was at. All the grandkids. We're grown now. We was at Nanny's, and Nanny would be cooking, and she always
Mm-hmm.
sang "Precious Lord." That was her favorite hymn,
All
and
right.
she would have her apron on, and here come all the grandkids with whatever. But we was every Saturday. That was a known. You going to see Nanny wherever she was, and
And Nanny
all the
got a
cousins
cake.
got together, and after that, then we all went out.
Mm.
And then my
But Nanny had
grandmother
a
would
cake too.
say, She never drank, never smoked, none of that. But you know, by now
Mhm.
everybody got a little drink or whatever have you. So
Right.
be careful. You know how you know. But I mean, that was the greatest thing, togetherness. But we got to find it. We, like you say, a
Mhm.
lost generation. We've lost that gathering. Thanksgiving was
Hmm.
always a time for family.
Yes.
Now people got talking about what is it, Friendsgiving or something? Well, maybe that I shouldn't.
Friendsgiving.
Maybe that's what they do now. But your family is the most important thing,
Well, your
no matter
friends
what
do
it
become
is.
family, don't they?
Yeah.
Huh?
Like some people like me, like my mom and my dad are gone. I have toxic family members. I don't want to deal with toxicity. So I leave the toxic alone. I love you from a distance. But then
True.
my
That's true.
friends
That's
had
true.
became a part of my village. And so we
Right.
Yes,
might call it a friendsgiving. But every relationship starts with you. You want to be a friend. Your
that's true.
relationship with
That's
your
true. I
husband
mean,
or
I
your
got to.
wife.
I stand corrected on that one. Yes, but I guess I'm used to see only child. You always like to
Oh,
be
that's
around
true.
people, and I guess that's what it is. So, but if you came here for something to eat, you'll always get something to eat here.
Mhm.
Steph can tell you, and she's a great cook though. But she
We
knows
coming to
whenever I'm
visit you,
having
Mama J. We coming
dinner,
to visit.
something will be ready now. Something will be ready.
We
Don't
come.
say
Mama
Look,
that.
J's
we
always got something going on.
Mama J, don't say that because I'm actually heading that way after we wrap up today. I'm heading up to my mom's house in the week wake section. So don't say that. So because I'll take a trip on up there now to Hooterville.
But you know what she made? You know, she makes. I mean, she made a good point from being an only child, right?
yes, she
And
did.
you know,
Absolutely.
and we always think about having sisters and brothers around us and whatever have you. She had a different challenge, and I don't know, even know if that was really a challenge. It was more so the fact that you had to start looking at people a little differently. Being a single child, you know, you had cousins, aunts, uncles, things of that nature, but she has built such a great relationship with people in her life that have
Right.
become part of her village, that she
Mhm.
trusts, and that come together as a community as well, because I've seen the stuff that they've put together as a community.
Mhm.
The silver foxes, as she calls them herself, and them, they come together and
Mhm.
they created community functions where people came together. It was always about coming together as people, as human beings, and enjoying each other, having a bite to eat, music, just everything. A little history goes with it, and that's the one thing that brings me joy when I am I'm with the Johnson clan, because I see how they operate and I see how much family is so important, and how we just enjoy each other's company. And it's not just about just the family. There's people outside that have
Mhm.
become family as well, through history, through time.
But Steph, I'd like to piggyback on that, but just getting to know you um through your husband, you embody that as well.
Yep.
Mm.
In bringing all of us together and
Yep.
this
She
just
sure
meeting some of
does.
the other phenomenal women that you interact with. And we all, chatted up on social media or
Right.
whatever, but you as well. Like when I met Lady Wisdom for the first time, it was like I had known her all my life.
Yeah.
You know, some
So
people
you
have these
you embody that as well.
personalities. Lady Wisdom, are you in the area? Do you live in the area?
I
Are
live
you
in
we
New
we
Jersey?
Pennsylvania. I live about 30 minutes from Steph.
Oh,
we
you're
could
up my
bring her
favorite.
down there. You.
Oh, hey, Steph, you know my spot. You told about my favorite spot up there, right?
Oh, she's got a few favorite spots up here that we take her, but the casino is the biggest one.
God.
The casino is definitely the biggest one. And you know what, Tawanda, thank you for that, because
Mhm.
I listen to what you all are saying, and it's interesting because I think about my family, and again, it's not about me here. It's about really, you all here. But there's such common threads that I have with my family as well. The Sunday dinners, eating together, talking, family, just yes, there's dramatic little things going on and people that we may say are toxic and whatever, that we, it's every family. There's such a
Right.
commonality that we are human. We are a human entity in this life that we have been given, right? And we all come from the same place. And it's this, and I don't want to start with the preaching, but is this country, I'll say, because my ancestors are from Italy. We didn't start in the US. We started in Italy. I'm a first generation American. But when I think about how we grew up with our cousins and our sisters and everybody else, it's the same thing. It was the same thing for us. And society and what this country has done to separate people and to create such a divide is what has
Mhm.
created the disparities that we are seeing and still seeing today.
Mhm.
Probably even worse now. I mean, I don't want to say worse now, but we're starting to see this come back again. And
Right.
we have a responsibility
Mhm.
together to push through and to not allow the devil to win
Mhm.
over what we need to bring to our families and to society and to our future children and grandchildren, et cetera, and so on. But it does start from, what our ancestors brought to us, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
again, going back to Mama J and all she's learned, and to Wanda, what you've learned, and Lady Wisdom, what you've learned from your family, and Lady K, the bonds that
Mhm.
were created that you cannot separate. It
That's
is up
Mhm.
right.
to all of
Exactly.
us.
Exactly. I think I left off two of the most important people, my
Yep,
mom and my dad, because if it
that's
wasn't for them, and I think they raised me well being an only child, because you always think of somebody that's spoiled. Oh, I have my ways now. Oh, I have the ways now. Don't let me fool you on that. But I mean, and she would always tell the children, don't play with her. Because I would say, I'm going to take my stuff in. I'm not going to play if I can't be the mother. And she would hear
Mhm.
me. And she would say, come inside. And she would tell them, don't play. Don't let her do that.
mm,
But I think that's
Mm.
where the strong personality comes from, being able to do that. And it's not a nice thing to do, but you learn as you grow. And I've grown many, 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 many years. But I just wanted to add one more thing. When you say about cousins, your cousins were your friends,
Yes.
because
yes,
that's all
They were
you
your
had at that
first
time, your
friend.
cousins. And
yes,
and so many of them, I love them
yes,
all.
Yeah,
yes.
I didn't have that experience because my cousins
Yes.
are either significantly older or significantly younger than me. So I
Mm,
was pretty much not an only child, but like an only cousin. And then my sisters were older
Mm.
than me. And so a lot of that has fed into my personality of me, going off and being on my own or being in the background. And Steph will tell you she was the first person to pull me out from behind the computer screen where I'm comfortable.
Really?
Yes, I prefer to be in the background making things happen, not being on camera. I don't like taking pictures. And she pulled me out from behind the computer screen.
We know
you know,
people like that.
you have to look,
I'm talking about my girl Tiff.
you have to, and this is what I think we lose as
Mhm.
well, is there's so many people that bring so much to the table, and sometimes they don't see it enough in themselves, or maybe they do but they're afraid to put themselves out there. And for
Right.
me, I mean, the type of person I am, and I love, just the camaraderie and being able to talk and joke and laugh. I like joking and laughing. Like me, I like the energy. I like energetic. I mean, we got to just be, look, that's why I'm Fire. Just saying. I need to have some fire in my life. But it's important as we think about village and bringing it back to the village, is that we also bring each other up
Hmm.
together,
Right.
and we don't discount what people can bring to the table, and we
Hmm.
bring them up with us. And I think we lose that as well. Sometimes we're fighting against each other so much that we don't realize that we have a common goal in life, and that
Right.
is to bring to others, to bring, if that's what you are as a person,
Hmm.
to bring out the best in others as well as those that bring out the best in ourselves. And we miss that sometimes. We do
Yeah,
miss that sometimes.
I find that, and I share this with people all the time. What happened is people have become very selfish, and they feel
Mm,
like if if you get, then there's not enough for me. But there's enough out here for everybody.
Everybody.
That's
Yeah.
what happens. It's like, I want it all to myself.
Hmm.
But no, there's
Yep.
enough out here for everybody.
There is definitely enough, and
Mhm.
that's another piece again to the again the devil doing its
Mhm.
work, right?
Yep.
So the devil's doing his work by separating people or plugging into people's ears and minds what's
Mhm.
so bad about the good that's out there. Think about it, because there's good out there, but he's telling you
Mhm.
it's not good.
Yep.
Don't do that,
Absolutely.
right? It's bad. Don't do that.
Yes.
Keep it moving. Do it,
Yes.
opposite of what you in your heart of hearts. That is what we need to go back to, what's in our heart of hearts. And we lose that sometimes because we're allowing that to get into our minds and our spirits, and we're letting that play on us versus
Mhm.
pushing ourselves the right thing, pushing that right thing forward. I want
Mhm.
to kind of because we talk about the village as far as family and love and just togetherness and spirituality and so on and so forth, but there's other elements that help us kind of bringing the village together again, and that is teaching, educating, allowing people, giving people the opportunity to grow in many different areas. So I want to talk about when we think about academics, academic excellence, because there's a lot of things that the media throws out there about our the neighborhoods and the violence and all the bad things, right? Because they like to focus on the bad, always focus on the bad. And
Right.
I hate that we always tune in on such of the negative nature of
Mhm.
what the media likes to portray, right? Because there's always one sided. It's lopsided, right? All the time. Think about academic excellence. Think about financial and economic literacy. Think about healthy living. Thinking about culture exposure. These are all elements that when we learn from one another and learn from those who are in that space that can give of themselves to teach the village,
Mhm.
these are things that are important also to bring us up, right? To carry us forward,
Right.
and to create a future that we can all live together harmoniously, as well as, really have the mindset to move forward collectively and not independently of one another. And I say independently because you have to learn independently, but collectively we add that to the society. We add that to the social construct and the future of this country. Without that, who knows where we're going. What are some of the things that do you feel there are people when we think about our neighborhoods today and
Mhm.
such the separation, right? Because not everybody's together, communities change, people, flip over homes and leave and whatever have you. There was also within your history, within when you think about your historical, your ancestors, the academic part, excellence. They always fought to make sure you have an education and make sure you have what is required to push you forward and advance yourself in society. How important was that? What did that your ancestors do to make sure that that was something that was always held strong as you develop through life, and through the years of growing up? Academic excellence. Let's talk about that.
It was not an option. It was not an option in my parents' household.
Hmm.
Them being just high school graduates and not having the opportunity because of when they were born, my father going into a segregated military, my mother having to go to work because then, everyone worked to kind of support the family. Um, and so that was not an option. They afforded all of us the opportunity to get at least in undergraduate education. I was one that, knew it, like I knew in high school, and most of my peers, we knew in high school that we were going to college. It wasn't like we had time to find ourselves or anything. Like, we automatically knew. um, Report cards were often viewed. There was an explanation for anything that was less than excellent, or did
Mm,
you try your best? That was the
yeah.
thing, making sure you did your best. They always went to parent teacher conferences. So parent teacher conferences were attended, and when I grew up, um, and there was like, we knew we were graduating from high school. Like that just was not an option. Oh, I'm just going to drop it. No,
Right.
this household, reading was stressed.
Mm-hmm.
So I people laugh, but I did not have a TV personally until my freshman year in college. So that's
Wow.
probably why, like, I did not watch a lot of TV. I was an avid reader and played a lot of sports, and I'm big into music. But that's probably why I OD on TV now, because I couldn't do it when I was younger. I couldn't have a calculator until my senior year in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So even though my parents were not college educated, they commanded academic excellence. And I don't think, you have to have parents. I was first generation to go to college in my family.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a standard that you have to set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The bar was set very high in the Johnson
Mhm.
household.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
were both professionals, and everybody had to go to school. Shell went to Salem State, Rookie went to Salem State, Darren FAMU. You don't even try to think this is not what we.
Mm-hmm.
Report
Right.
cards always went. PTA always went to the meeting. Now, what happened to the PTA? You may have 3 people come.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
teachers aren't what they used to be either.
Right.
Wanda, that's right. Am I right? I mean, the teaching profession has kind of fallen off somewhat. Maybe is it because of the students, or
It's a
they've
combination.
gotten so aggressive? I mean, it's just a whole lot of things going on. But excellent education always. And
Mhm.
my grandmother again could read, write, and
Mhm.
count,
Yep.
and that always amazed me about her.
Mhm.
She didn't have a college. She didn't go to school. Maybe what a schoolhouse.
Mhm.
I'm thinking maybe she didn't
Mm-hmm.
talk about that, but she could do all 3 of those, and that was the most important
Absolutely.
thing: read, write, and count.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Kept
But
everything tied in a little handkerchief, pin it right here.
yes, yes, yes. Mama J, piggybacking off of what you said about the difference in the teachers, one of the things that I noticed with my niece, who's now in her 30s, when she was going to school, and sometimes I would go if my sister had to work to meet with teachers or whatever. And, the one thing that I definitely remember about you, you always were dressed like a lady, always.
Thank you.
Hasn't changed from the time I met you when I was a kid. But I would see some of the teachers and I would have the conversation with my sister later, like the stuff that some of the teachers had on. I was just like, I was appalled.
Yeah, yeah.
Society has changed
Oh
drastically.
my
Things have
gosh.
drastically, and I think it's just a function of just people say pop culture, right? And I agree. I think that's just a common thing that unfortunately we have to and that's going to be a hard thing to kind of come back from, right? But I want to stick to this whole just
Mhm.
quickly about this academic excellence, and I
Yes.
want to go to Lady K, because I know you got young children, and
Right.
Lady
Mhm.
Wisdom, you've got grandchildren now, and I know how important that was in your with your children as well. How are you managing through that with your kids, to ensure that they have what they need to from an academic standpoint, academic excellence, and any challenges that we're having today with just the way school systems are being run.
Right. So before I answer that, I just want to indicate this. My grandmother was the oldest out of 9. And
Mm.
my grandmother only went to ninth grade. So it was beautiful now that all her grandchildren graduated from high school. Some have some college experience and some actually graduated from college. And my son, which is her first great grandson, is now in college. So I'm pretty
Love
sure
that.
right now she's probably in heaven happy because I didn't force college on my son, but I was very big on education. But I put to my son, there's different types of educations. Which types
Absolutely.
do you want? So I gave my son the exposure. I sat to him. I didn't pressure him. And then he came to me in his senior year. I want to go to college. Oh, you want to? What did mommy do? I hurry up and fill out that FAFSA form. I wasn't playing because he made a decision on what he wanted to do. But again, I just wanted to encourage him. And I was just so happy he chose that route because I asked him, I said, wait a second. I said, before you actually go and say, I want to go to college, I said, why are you going? What do you want to do? Let's talk about it because we don't talk about the options because it makes no sense for you to accumulate all this debt if you're going to do nothing with it. So, again, that's an education within itself. I
Yes.
actually, and we talked about this. We talked about what can we do to help this generation. You have to make time for them. I was so dedicated last year that I picked a particular time that I spent with my older son because I know my days were busy and they were long, but I specifically allocated that to him. So I'm so happy looking back that I did that because that makes him feel good. One, my mom took the time out for me. Two, I learned a lot of things along the way. So I think right there, that's very imperative for parents to make sure you make that time so they can make a right and educated decision for themselves because you want to put them in a position where they can think for themselves. It's not just from your influence. It's because of what you instilled in them.
Yeah.
And that's my perspective. And with the little one, I have to say this too, because everybody education is different. So sometimes you have to do for one child what you did differently from one child. The oldest one had no problem going to school, but with the young one, I decided to homeschool.
Mm.
And sometimes
Okay.
that's an option. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. And homeschooling obviously became a big deal even through COVID. I mean, a lot of some parents decided not to send their kids back into the school system for their own reasons, of course. But that's a good. I I listen to that and I say, yeah, there are some everybody's different. How they learn, how they get, it's different. Every child could be different in your own family,
Right.
on what they
Right.
take from that perspective. And I know we're down to like another 10 minutes. We'll probably go a little over here because there's so much that we could be discussing in this space. And I want to bring. I think we're going to have a number two.
Yes, this is part
Two.
two.
Oh, that
Part
sounds
two
good. But
coming back.
could I just say something about the
Absolutely.
education thing again,
Sure.
Steph?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say that my granddaughter just got her master's
Yes, she did.
a couple of months ago. So this
Yes, she
education
did.
thing works. Oh yeah, we are so proud. Her name is Shakira Johnson Jones, and so we are proud of her. I mean, she's an entrepreneur, by the way,
Yes.
in Allentown, Pennsylvania,
Yes.
with a bakery
Yes.
called Kira's Delights, and she has a daycare center, and plus she holds a job, so she's really
So she's
fantastic, and
doing
just
it.
like all of your
She's doing
families
it.
are fantastic, but we always have to give our younger people
The
extra
encouragement.
pats and
Mm-hmm.
urging, and I mean, and you just feel proud, and you feel proud when you see others doing well also. But
Absolutely.
it's enough of the pie for all of us
Absolutely.
Mm.
if
And
you
you
want to
feel like
divide it up right.
Yeah.
your words, I know you're sitting there and you're gleaning with pride because you feel like your the words and the wisdom that you passed down, it didn't land on deaf ears. And that's one of the things
Yeah,
that I wanted to piggyback on, Steph, when you were talking about teaching. But I'm finding that with some of the younger generation, they don't have a teachable spirit.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
know, they feel like when you're trying to share wisdom or you're trying to correct them, that you're preaching, that you're
Mm-hmm.
lecturing them, and they're like, I don't want to hear it. Oh, go on with all that.
Right.
Or you hear if you try to tell them something different, oh, I got this, I'm good. And meanwhile, you're watching them just spinning their wheels. And one of the things I will say to them is like, you know everything, but yet you know nothing.
right.
Mm.
You know, it's like you know everything, but you know nothing. And that's the one thing I like sitting at the feet of our elders, gleaning from their wisdom, because they have been where I have yet to go,
Right.
and
That
trying
part.
to get the children to understand, to sit for a minute and have a teachable spirit.
Mm.
Because
Right.
I
they can
think
tell you, I'm grown, and I have gone through this with some of the younger generation. I'm grown. I'm like, yeah, you're of a certain age and you call yourself grown and then you make decisions that don't equate to a person who's supposedly grown. They're
Mm.
grown, but they're still living in their parents' house, but that's a whole nother story. But
Oh, Lord.
also, you're not free from the consequences of those decisions that you make.
Right.
Once that backfires on you, then you want to come curl up under me in a fetal position and you want me to rub your wounds. But if
Right.
you were grown, then you got to handle the consequences of your grown decision making.
Right.
Yes.
You
Yes.
remember,
And like
you
I
remember
tell them,
this
I
one?
said,
If you made your bed hard, you got to lie in it.
yes,
Lie in it.
because my thing is, I'm like, you can't pick and choose when you want to be grown. If you're grown, you're grown.
Right.
And that's one of the issues I have with some of the millennials and the younger that they don't want you to tell them anything. Oh, I got to learn on my own, or no, it ain't like when you grew up. Like we're totally ancient. But I'm like, the more things change, the more to say the same. The game is the
Yeah.
same. The players just change.
They don't
Exactly.
know that. They don't know that yet. But I have to say this, right? Even though they may have that attitude, because I can say that because I had that when I was 18 and when I was younger.
What?
I had that attitude. Oh, they don't know what they talking about. I'm in love. What they talking about? However, I have to say this. It doesn't matter how often you keep saying it, because what you're doing is actually planting the seeds. So when
Okay.
they do become of age, when they do evolve, when they get to that space, I remember when Auntie said this. I remember when Grandma said this. And then they start to humble themselves, because a lot of the things that my grandmother taught me, I had a humbling experience
Amen.
taking care of
Amen.
my grandmother as she died in front of our face. But I have to say this: my grandma
Hmm.
died with so much love around her. Let me tell you something. She, like I said, she has 9 grandchildren, and 3 were missing that day. She was surrounded by love when she died, and she still wisdom
Hmm.
in each and every one of us. And I'm sure now all we can just do is reflect about her memories and the love that she gave us in those teachable moments. So
Mhm.
Hmm.
I know we get frustrated, but there also has to be a line where the older generation is listening to the younger one, because that's where the disconnects happen. So you
Okay.
can't go into that attitude, I told you so. You have to remove that, remove yourself. That's part of the issues, because they feel like you're not listening to them, and vice versa. So
Wow.
somebody has to stop
Hmm.
the ego, because it has to be said, and just listen, not talk to respond, but actually respond after you finish listening to them.
Hmm.
Well,
That's
I
you know.
think one of the things, just want to say this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think one of the things is that sometimes we don't know. Um, People learn differently,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
It's not always the message, it's sometimes the messenger,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
So
Hmm.
you have audio listeners, learners, you have hands-on learners, and you have those that can read a book and memorize everything in it.
Yep.
Mhm.
Um, we have to be conscious that we don't all learn the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I've been telling people a lot lately is one of our biggest problems. My daughter is a teacher. She's a fourth grade teacher. My youngest daughter happens to be a behavioral therapist, and she deals with children with autism.
Mm.
Nice.
Um, my son is in management. I am very proud to say education was very important to my household.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it wasn't one of the biggest priorities in my mother's home because there was so much other things going on. I am one of 9. I happen to be your middle child.
Mm.
Education was very important to me and to my household. I believe I believed it and I instilled it in my children, who are now educators themselves as well as their parents. Um I had to tell my daughter she had to learn how to watch these people, observe them, and figure out how they learn. My
Hmm.
youngest daughter, who's a behavioral therapist, actually her degree, she will have her master's degree in behavior analysis. And in learning that, what you do when you analyze things, you actually sit back and you learn how others learn. So we had things as we was growing up, you learned that the village is important. but a lot of people don't know how important it is until they experience the need for how when they needed that village, right? So you got a lot of people that think they could do it on their own until they come across a situation or a
Mhm.
circumstance where they need extra help.
Yeah.
The one thing that I learned with my children when they started having children is how important their support system is. I tell
Mm.
that to my kids all the time. You want to be here, you have to be mindful. When you move here, you won't have the same support system. So my family at this moment is trying to come together in the same area so that everybody has a support system.
Mm.
Very
I got
important.
you. I will support you. I got your back. I will help
Mhm.
you with my grandchildren because I want them to experience having a loving grandmother that will teach them some things, not
Mhm.
only about themselves, but about her history so that they'll know that they have a history. They'll know where they came from so that they'll know how to avoid those traps that we fell into and making unwise decisions because no one had gave us truth and information that we might need it. Um, each one of my children at one point in time, it was so crazy, is because they used to watch me read books. So I
Mm.
had to figure out what my kids could do so that they could learn from the things that they want. My son started reading his books. His books started out as comic books. My youngest daughter, she would read anything you would put in front of her. My oldest daughter, I call them smut books, but they're more like romance
Mhm.
and drug dealing and all of that other stuff in there. Um, but I watched them. So I would have certain books in the house to accommodate each of them. I had two dictionaries in the house and a thesaurus because you need to know there's other ways to say it. I used to tell my
Yes.
daughter's teacher, there's no use of my daughter knowing how to spell a 26 letter word if she don't know the definition of it. There was a
Mm.
point when they was teaching them, but they were not teaching them how to define the words and understand them. They would tell them to put the word in a sentence. Well, I can't put it in a sentence if I don't know what the word means.
Mm.
So for me, again, I say education is important. And I used to tell my kids this all the time. Don't do me, do better than me. And the only way they can know that they're doing better than me is if I tell them about me.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's a part of the village, right? So
Yes.
when I went back to school, I was like, I got my associate degree. Guess what degree I want y'all to get? If I get my associate, you got to get your bachelor's.
Yeah.
And you know what my children done? They all challenged me because now we got our bachelors and we going for our masters. That means you got to get your bachelors. You got to
Nice.
finish it, mommy. You got to finish your bachelors. Now,
Mhm.
once I have my master's degree, then I'm not saying that you got to go for your doctorate, but mom, you smart enough and you can do it. You know, like.
Mhm.
But I also teach my kids to encourage each other that this is who you got. You got their
Right.
back. You talk about you talk about the village. We have to make the choice to teach our children who their village is, how to look out for their village, how to
Mm.
respect their grandmothers, how to
Mm.
respect their mothers. We
Mm.
have to be that voice. You can't let your grandchildren talk to you like trash and
Mm.
not talk, and they talking to their parents like trash. Watch your mouth.
Mm.
Mm.
You know, we still parents. It nothing. It just says we're grandparents. That means that we're supposed to know a
Right.
little bit more than the parents that they have. So at this point, that's where we supposed to be talking about this village.
Mm.
So we know that some friends gonna love you different than other friends. We know family members gonna love you different than other family members gonna love you. So now in my life and in my choices, I know that I got consequences for them. So I need to know that my consequences are not always going to be a negative consequence. So I'm teaching my young adults. My oldest is going to be 35. I'll have a 30-year-old and a 28-year-old.
Wow.
And they are all
All
parents.
right.
They are all college graduates. They are all raised by the same mother. They all
Wonderful.
have the same father.
Wonderful.
And I don't have a problem with people that have children. But if you're going to say that I'm the matriarch of the family, then I need you to know how I got that title. I don't get
Ooh,
it because I'm older.
yes,
I got it because I
Woo!
got wisdom. Mama J is a queen.
that's
And
right.
that's
Right.
exactly who's gonna teach those that are around her, her nieces, her nephews,
Yes.
her children, her grandchildren. It's that wisdom that she's going to bring to them. She makes a choice to instill it in them, and that is how they're getting it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's not just
Preach.
about us. We got to learn to teach our children. It's not just about y'all anymore. It's
Right.
about those. These children didn't ask to be here. And
Thank you.
now that you have them here, now I'm making the choice to make sure that you could get everything, and I mean everything from being here that I can offer to you. I got your back. I got you. You got my support. I love you. I tell my kids that on a daily basis. I need my kids to know I love them because we don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next.
Thank
I tell you, my
thank you.
sisters, be y'all queens that you are.
Thank you.
God bless those that have children and those that don't have biological children, still have children. You are part of a village. Help
Right.
raise
Yes,
our children to be the adults that they become. Help
Man,
them.
absolutely.
woo! That was a whole lot up in there. She came in and she just took it right home.
Yes, she did.
Took it right home. Lady Wisdom, man, that was a lot. But all I'm gonna say is that part, that part.
Mhm.
Everything you said, everything you said is exactly what. When you circle back and look at the holistic picture of what this show was intended to be and how we need to move forward, what you said is exactly that. It is about the future. It is about the next generation. It is about taking what you learned and making them better, right? And them
Absolutely.
taking that, being able to be coachable, to be able to take that wisdom and move forward and understanding their history, understanding their matriarchs, the people in their families, their grandparents, and everything that they've been able to learn. But we got to make sure we teach them who the family is. Where did they come from? How did they get here? And how do you progress forward and be successful and continue to create this village that we need to continue to move forward as as people, as society. Man,
Right.
Hmm.
I don't even know what else to say after that one.
This is that.
Really
Yeah,
don't know
she's
what
on the
else.
money. She hit the nail on the head when she said respect, and that's the biggest thing right
Absolutely.
now.
Yeah.
Respect
Mhm.
and the legacy that we leave.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right.
Absolutely.
So as we kind of, because I think we need to come back to the table. Maybe Women's Month or something. We need to come back to the table and continue to talk because there's so much here, so much here.
Right.
But I have one final question, and then we'll kind of, I think this will help us to kind of also close out. Who did you look up to? And I probably already know some of the answers, but who did you look up to and admire when it came to continuing to keep a village mentality, but also the work it entailed to keep the village? Who was that person? Family,
Mhm.
activist, whomever. Who was it in your history? Who was it that who do you think of when I say that, when I ask that question? Who do you think of? Let's go to, I know everybody's thinking real hard right now, but first person that comes to your head.
For me,
Let's
it's
go
my
with
mother. For
your
me,
mother.
it's my mother. And for the longest time, I tried to run away from the responsibility of being that nucleus. My mom being older now, even though she's still with us, I've kind of picked up the mantle and doing the family dinners. Like when I go up today, I'm taking food. I'll usually cook and take food there. And she would always say, "Y'all stick together. Y'all stick together." And
Mhm.
so it was embedded in me. For the longest time, I thought it was a little unfair being the youngest sibling to have to carry that mantle. But I always would revert back to, God only puts on you. He would never put anything on you that would not help you to bear.
Hmm.
And then realizing with my nieces and nephew and other people in the family, how, like you were saying, Lady K, about them paying attention. So now, like if I'm busy or I can't do the family dinner, like I would do it, and we would do games, and I would go out and get little prizes. And like now, that's like I'll get a text message, "Hey, we doing dinner? Are we gonna have games with prizes? Should I brush up on my trivia?" And realizing that they really enjoyed it and they
Right.
were looking forward to it. But definitely, my mother, and just making sure I try to keep everybody together.
I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
Let's go to Lady K.
Okay, so for me, the number one person in my eye, that was my grandma.
Mm,
That was my
yeah.
grandma. So again, I'm just gonna reiterate, I just appreciate everything that she instilled in me.
Mhm.
And when I was younger, there was some things I didn't understand. But as I got older, and like I said, I evolved, and then I got to take care of her last days. A lot of things just start making sense to me. So
Mhm.
Mm,
I just appreciate all her nuggets that she dropped on me. So now I can take that mantle and carry it and do that for my family.
I love it. I love it. Lady Wisdom.
Um, I would actually just say the village that was around me when I was growing up.
Mm,
Mhm.
Because what it taught me was my mom was a big influence in my life.
mm,
But without the village that was surrounding me, I wouldn't have got to see um, things I should be doing, things I shouldn't be doing.
mm,
Being around that village helped me make different choices.
mm,
I think one of the hardest things for others to see is while I was growing up, I kept my mouth shut a lot.
mm,
When we was growing up, we had to be seen and not heard.
mm,
Um, I was so quiet when I was in a room with adults that they would forget I was in there.
mm,
And I would hear things and I would see things and I'd be
mm,
around things. Some things that I probably shouldn't have. I would hear things that I probably shouldn't have. Um, I would know things that other people didn't know, but it was because of my village that was around me
mm,
that taught me the rights, the wrongs, the goods, the bads, the
mm.
indifferences. What I learned to do is to stop expecting people to be me.
Yes. Mm,
Um, my expectation, my expectation was I used to expect things from people, and I think that's where the biggest letdown in all of us are come is because we expect people to do things the way we do it, or act, or respond, or such. I'm sure this show could go on forever and ever, um, but I'm just gonna wind it down and say, be mindful of your community and the community that you bring around your children, your
mm-hmm,
grandchildren,
mm-hmm.
and know that people are watching.
Yeah.
Um, Not only are they watching, but they're listening.
They're listening.
So just pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
This may not be the end of this series, but right now I'm gonna say I've got to stop talking now.
Well, we're gonna end and we're gonna have to end. We're gonna have to get Mama J to tell us because she's got 80 plus years in the bank here. Mama J, who is the person that you think about when
My
we talk?
mother,
All
my
right.
mother, my mother. She taught
And
me so many, many things, and they are still instilled in my mind.
mm,
And if you met her, you would see why I say that.
mm,
Amen.
amen.
Great
Amen.
influence on my life. Now, I'm not going to
Amen.
leave my dad out either because he was on the money. That was my man, my dad. So,
Yeah.
mom and dad both. And I'd like to say they raised me very, very well. Love you, mom and dad.
Love it. And we love you. I love every single one of you on this panel. I am literally, I mean, I'm smiling. The energy in the room was just amazing. Listening to you all, reflecting, and just, again, and I'm sure there's plenty more nuggets Mama J is going to be giving us in the future. But and I know I'll be seeing her soon, so she can spread some more love and some energy. But I want to thank everybody today for this show. This was just such an amazing panel of wisdom and insights and love and the village. Today we
That's
saw the
right.
village. Today we saw the village. And I hope anybody who's listening out there, anybody who has children or grandchildren, please let them listen to this. Talk to your children, give them some insights and perspective about your village, about your ancestors. Have them understand and learn. Keep talking to them. They may not be listening right now, but guess what? Whatever you have told them, eventually somewhere down the road, that is going to come back to them.
Mm-hmm.
I will guarantee you those words will come back to them at some point in their life. Never give up on telling them and sharing and giving them the love and energy of your ancestors, because that will come back to them in the future. So with that said, I'm going to end this show and say, I love my sistership network up in here today. I love
Yes,
y'all.
ma'am.
Lady
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you back on, Lady K. I love you. To Wanda Jones, I got you up out of here into the fold, and we're gonna get you back on. And Mama J, with much love, respect, I love you, love you, love you, love you, and I
Love you
appreciate
too. Had a
you.
great afternoon, ladies.
Yes,
Have
ma'am.
a
Yes,
great one. This
ma'am.
is your
And
girl,
I was
Steph
happy
Fire.
to see you too, Twanda. And I know I'll see you, and I'm gonna see you too, Lady Wisdom. I'm gonna catch up with you. Once
She
this
just
thing lifts, I'm on my way. I mean, I still get around now. I can still do a little something now. So
Well, wait,
they don't count me out.
Mama C put in the comments that we need to have a casino day with you.
absolutely.
Mama
She's
J,
coming
she
up.
said we
Love
need
it.
to.
I love it.
Coming up soon. Everybody join us with Mama J in the casino. We're going to have a party.
Yeah.
We getting out of here. This is your girl, Steph
Okay.
Fire. I love y'all. Peace and love. The Sistership
Peace and
Network
love.
every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on the Sistership Network. We love y'all. Peace.
Everybody have a blessed week.
Have a blessed one.
Blessings to you. Love and blessings.
Yeah, we on a sister ship. Come with us, we on a sister ship. Yeah, we on a sister ship. Roll with us, we on a sister ship.
Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it.
We're my sisters, we got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with ya. We're my sisters, we got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with ya. Substance, sis, you know we on a mission, no games. Help each other get over some things, build strength, bring change. Cause we been through the rain, now it's time to shine like bling. Let's talk about life skills. We building up our quality to right wills. We rolling out of poverty, love heals. So we become the prodigy of how a sistership could be a really hot commodity. Stand together, we united, hold hands. Support each other dreams and our plans, doing everything we can. Just to show we understand the power of a friendship fam. Live life on purpose, together we learn it. Yeah, let's talk, we don't wanna see you hurt. And we here for each other, no matter the color, networking. That's for sure and for certain. Come on!
Yeah, we on a sister ship. Come with us, we on a sister ship. Yeah, we on a sister ship. Roll with us, we on a sister ship.
We're my sisters, we got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with ya. We're my sisters, we got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with ya.
Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it.